Grab a chair, learn some facts. The SSCC Deep Dive Podcast.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Shepard-Smith Compliance Consulting March 2026 Deep Dive.
It is great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's really nice to have you with us today. Oh, man. This month's compliance topic is a fun one.
Well, just the thought of compliance is usually a sedative for most research administrators.
We think this is a topic you'll definitely want to stay awake for, because today is March 1st, 2026. And if you've been watching the Federal Register or, just staring nervously at your inbox, you know the ground has officially shifted beneath our feet.
It certainly has. We're looking at a pretty massive stack of documents today. We've got policy updates from the NSF, the NIH, the Department of Energy, and a particularly distinct, some might say aggressive memo from the USDA.
And they all seem to orbit around one very scary-sounding acronym.
The acronym of the year, MFTRP.
Right?
And it's all driven by the legislation that really started it all, the CHIPS and Science Act.
Just to be clear for everyone listening, that is CHIPS, but pronounced just like the snack, the CHIPS and Science Act.
Exactly. And our mission today is to really unpack this. I mean, we need to move past the buzzwords and figure out why MFTRP is keeping general counsels and research integrity officers up at night, what it strictly defines, and what you, our friends in research administration, need to be doing about it right now.
Okay, so let's get right into the weeds. MFTRP, it sounds like a bad tire pressure reading, but it stands for Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program.
Correct. And I think the best way to understand this is to parse that phrase really carefully. We have to look at the foreign talent recruitment program part before we even get to the malign part.
Because that distinction is critical, isn't it? I mean, not all foreign recruitment is bad or illegal. Sure. If a university in Paris wants to hire a brilliant American physicist to come lecture for a summer or collaborate, the federal government isn't trying to shut that down.
No, absolutely not. And the sources, specifically the NSF policies, they really go out of their way to clarify this. A foreign government-sponsored talent recruitment program is, broadly speaking, just an effort by a foreign government to recruit science and tech professionals.
So in a vacuum, that's a good thing.
It's the lifeblood of science. It's how we advance. The existence of the program itself isn't the crime. It's not about building walls around American science.
Okay, so when does it become malign?
It becomes malign, and this is the specific legal definition from the CHIPS and Science Act, when it pairs that sponsorship with specific behaviors. It's the plus factor analysis. You need the sponsorship plus the bad behavior.
Okay, so let's look at the sponsorship side first. The who. Who makes it malign?
It has to be sponsored by what the law calls a foreign country of concern. And the definitions explicitly list four entities: the People's Republic of China, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that's North Korea.
Right. Which, admittedly, is probably not a huge destination for our researchers, but the regulation is comprehensive.
You never know.
Yeah.
Also on that list are the Russian Federation and the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Okay, so that's the geography. If a program is sponsored by one of those four, does that automatically make it an MFTRP?
It makes it highly suspect, but strictly speaking, the definition relies on a checklist of behaviors.
Yeah.
The CHIPS and Science Act lays out 9 specific criteria. And this is where our listeners really need to pay attention, because if a contract requires a researcher to do any of these things, it crosses the line.
Let's run through the deal breakers, because reading through the source material, some of these sound less like academic contracts and more like plot points from a spy novel.
They really do. The first one is engaging in the unauthorized transfer of intellectual property, materials, or non-public data.
So theft.
Essentially theft, yeah.
Right.
Don't steal data is generally good advice in any job.
Right.
But then it gets much more subtle. Another criterion is if the program requires the researcher to establish a laboratory or a company in the foreign country.
The infamous shadow lab.
Exactly. You're taking U.S. taxpayer money to do research here, but you're secretly mirroring that work in a lab overseas. You are effectively double billing the global scientific community.
And that's a nightmare for an administrator to track, isn't it? I mean, unless you're physically in the lab, how do you know the data isn't being mirrored?
It's incredibly difficult. And here's where the contracts get really controlling. Another criterion for a malign program is if the contract prohibits the researcher from terminating the agreement, except in extraordinary circumstances.
You can't break up with them.
Effectively, no. Or another one is if the program requires you to recruit other trainees or researchers into the program.
It's an academic pyramid scheme.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And maybe the most critical one for our listeners to look for in disclosure forms. If the program requires you not to disclose your participation to your U.S. employer or the U.S. funding agency.
That's the Fight Club rule. The first rule of a malign foreign talent recruitment program is you do not talk about the malign foreign talent recruitment program.
Precisely. And if a researcher is in a program sponsored by a country of concern that has those characteristics, secrecy, overlapping funding, shadow labs, that is an MFTRP. And under the new rules, participation is just a hard stop.
I want to pause on the why for a second, because we're in March 2026. This conversation has been building for years, really since 2018 or 2019. Why is this crackdown hitting such a fever pitch right now?
It all connects to the broader concepts of research security and research integrity. The government is worried about what they call the insider threat.
Which sounds incredibly ominous.
It does, but the NSF definition is quite practical. It's just about someone with authorized access, like a principal investigator, using that access to harm the organization. And that can be malicious or it could be unintentional.
It's about protecting the U.S. investment in science.
Exactly.
Sure.
And the sources gave us some NSF case studies that really paint a picture of this. It moves it from abstract policy to, real-world fraud. Case study 3 was particularly wild.
Oh, the SBIR fraud case.
That was the one. You had a professor at a U.S. institution who founded a company. They applied for NSF's Small Business Innovation Research Funds.
Which is essentially free money for a startup to prove a concept.
Right. But the investigation revealed that the research they were getting paid to do in the U.S., it had already been done.
Where?
Overseas. The professor had a paid appointment at a foreign organization. They did the work there, used their resources, and then came to the U.S. and said, pay me to do this research, pretending it hadn't happened yet.
Wow, that is bold. That's not just a compliance oversight. That's just straight up fraud.
It is conspiracy to defraud the United States.
Yeah.
And that researcher was criminally convicted. It shows that the government isn't just looking for slap-on-the-wrist administrative penalties anymore. They are looking for prosecution.
There was another one case study, too, that hits on the double-dipping issue again, but in a way that feels like it could easily slip past a busy administrator.
Yes, the extended family leave case. Right. So a PI tells their U.S. university, I need to go on extended family leave. They leave the country. But they weren't just visiting family. They were actually working a foreign appointment and serving on a foreign talent plan.
All while presumably still listed as faculty here.
Yes. And the kicker, they returned to the U.S. briefly, just long enough to sit on an NSF review panel, and then left again.
That is incredible. So they're taking U.S. knowledge, reviewing U.S. grants, potentially gaining access to confidential proposals, all while secretly working for a foreign entity.
Exactly. And that resulted in the award being terminated and the PI being barred from reviewing. But just think about the reputational damage to the university in that scenario.
It's massive. Now, speaking of the government's attitude toward this, we have to talk about the tone shift. Because while the NSF and NIH are focusing on research security, we have this memo from the USDA, and frankly, the language is distinct.
It is. This is the Secretary's Memorandum from July 8th, 2025. It's titled America First Memorandum for USDA Arrangements and Research Security.
America First. That is not subtle.
No. And as we always do, we are reporting impartially on the policy here. But you have to recognize the shift. The memo explicitly states its goal is to prevent American taxpayer dollars from supporting foreign adversaries. It says, and I'm quoting here, every dollar will be scrutinized and stopped if determined to not be in the best interest of the nation's agricultural community.
And it sets up some very strict prohibitions for USDA employees and affiliates, right? This feels much stricter than the NSF guidelines we just discussed.
Much stricter. If you are a USDA employee or affiliate, you are prohibited from participating in any foreign talent recruitment program, not just the malign ones, any of them.
Wow. So that benign international exchange we talked about earlier.
If you are USDA, it's off the table.
Yeah.
And you cannot accept funding or in-kind donations for travel to a country of concern. Full stop.
So it creates a bifurcated compliance environment.
It does. If you're a research administrator listening to this, you can't just apply the NSF rules to your ag grants. You have to switch gears entirely.
That is a huge headache for central offices. You need different checklists for different agencies.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's pivot to the practical side. You are a research administrator. It's March 2026. You're convinced this is a big deal. What do you actually have to do to protect your institution?
This brings us to the administrative burden. And specifically, NIH, notice not OD 26018.
Which went into effect back in January.
Right, January 25, 2026. That was the cutoff. As of that date, any individuals who are a current party to an MFTRP are not eligible to serve as senior or key personnel on NIH grants.
They are out. No grace period.
They're out. And here's why this matters to you, the listener. The AOR, the authorized organization representative, has to certify this.
So the university has to promise the government, we checked, and this person is clean.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
The AOR certifies that all senior and key personnel have been made aware of the prohibition.
But how do we prove it? How do we get the researcher to put their name on the line so the AOR isn't left holding the bag? We're back to the forms.
The common forms. And specifically, the system we all know and love.
Don't say it.
Science CV.
Science CV. Just a quick public service announcement for everyone listening. It is not Science Civ. It is not Science V.
It stands for Science Experts Network Curriculum Vitae. Science CV. The NIH now requires researchers to use this system to complete their biographical sketch and their current and pending support.
And this isn't just uploading a PDF anymore. That's the big change, right?
Yeah. The researcher has to physically certify within the system. They have to click the button that says, I am not party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program.
And that click creates a digital trail.
A digital persistent identifier, or DPI, audit trail. This is so crucial because it removes the I didn't know defense. If a researcher certifies no, but the intelligence community later finds a contract with their name on it.
That is a false certification.
And that is a criminal offense under federal law. That is how you get into the territory of those case studies we discussed. Suspension, debarment, and potentially jail time.
So, for the administrators listening, make sure your PIs know what they are clicking. This isn't just a check the box to get the grant submitted moment. It's a legal attestation.
Absolutely. The warning systems in ERA Commons have already escalated to errors as of last month. If you aren't using the correct forms, the application literally won't go through. But the risk is in the content, not just the format.
Now, life is rarely black and white. Sometimes you have a researcher with a murky situation. Maybe they have some foreign funding, but it's not clearly malign. Maybe it's an honorary title at a Chinese university that covers travel but no salary. How do we handle those gray areas?
That is where the NIH decision matrix comes in. It was released back in July 2024, but it's more relevant now than ever. It helps administrators assess the risk.
Walk us through the factors. How does an admin use this tool?
Factor one is the big one, malign foreign talent recruitment program. If there are any indicators of active participation in an MFTRP, mitigation is required. In fact, the matrix says it is automatically disqualifying. There is no management plan that fixes an MFTRP. You have to quit the program, game over.
Okay.
But then you have factor two and factor three. These cover undisclosed foreign funding or affiliations with the country of concern.
So if I took money from a university in China, but I just forgot to tell the NIH.
That usually triggers a mitigation measures recommended status. It's not an automatic disqualification, but you have to fix it. You have to disclose it, and the university probably needs to put a management plan in place.
So transparency is the cure for factors 2 and 3.
Exactly. But for factor one, the malign program transparency just confirms you are ineligible.
And what about the USDA side of things for these gray areas? Because that memo mentioned a justification process.
Yes. For the USDA, because of that America First directive, there is a justification of new arrangements process. If a USDA agency wants to enter into an arrangement with a foreign entity, they have to answer some really tough questions. Like, will this benefit American farmers, ranchers, foresters, or consumers? And crucially, is there a qualified U.S. recipient who could do this instead?
So you have to prove that no American could do the job.
Essentially. They ask if the foreign recipient has unique expertise or resources not generally available in the U.S. If there's a domestic alternative, the mandate is to go domestic.
That is a high bar. That sounds like a significant administrative hurdle for any international ag research.
It is. And for universities receiving USDA funds, there is a requirement to prohibit applicants who have participated in a malign FTRP in the past 10 years.
A 10-year look back.
Yes. It's very stringent.
Yeah.
If you are hiring for a USDA-funded project, your background check needs to go back a decade regarding these programs.
Wow. So let's bring it all together. MFTRP equals bad. If you see those 9 criteria secrecy, shadow labs, can't quit, that is a hard stop.
Right.
Science CV certification equals mandatory.
And research administrators are the first line of defense. You're the ones who have to ensure the AOR isn't signing a lie.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We spend all this time talking about malign programs, bad actors, spies, essentially.
Right.
But if you connect this to the bigger picture, the core issue isn't really the foreign country itself, it's the secrecy.
You've nailed it. The antidote to malign isn't necessarily isolationism, it's radical transparency. If a researcher has nothing to hide about who is paying them or what they're doing in that lab overseas, the malign label usually disappears. The moment you hide it, you make it a weapon.
That is a great point. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and Science CV is, well, it's a very bright light.
It is indeed.
Well, looking at the calendar, since we started by telling you to stay awake for this compliance talk, it is deeply ironic that all of March is Sleep Awareness Month.
Maybe we all need a nap after reading those USDA memos.
I think we earned it. But don't nap too long because you need to mark your calendars for March 6th.
Why is that?
It is both National Oreo Cookie Day and National Dentist's Day.
That feels like a conflict of interest, doesn't it?
Or job security for the dentists. One of the two.
Fair point.
Also, don't forget to spring forward on March 8th for daylight saving time.
Losing an hour of sleep during Sleep Awareness Month. The irony just continues.
And please keep the kids safe and your chemicals stored properly during National Poison Prevention Week starting March 15th.
Always good advice, especially in our labs.
Let's also take a moment to thank our healthcare pros. March 19th is Certified Nurses Day, and March 25th is National Physicians Week.
We certainly appreciate everything they do.
And finally, keep an eye on the sky on March 20th.
Why? Is there another compliance deadline?
Nope. It's Alien Abduction Day.
Ah, well, that raises an important question.
What's that?
Is an alien mothership considered a foreign talent recruitment program?
I think that depends on if they offer you a shadow lab in orbit.
We'll let compliance decide.
We will indeed. Thank you all for listening to this deep dive. Good luck with your certifications and stay compliant out there.
See you in the next deep dive.